O'Reilly. You need parts? O'Reilly Auto Parts has parts. Need them fast? We've got fast. No matter what you need, we have thousands of professional parts people doing their part to make sure you have it. Product availability. Just one part that makes O'Reilly stand apart. The professional parts people.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Outdoor adventure won't wait for engine problems. Things like hard starts, rough performance, and lost fuel economy are often caused by fuel gum and varnish buildup. Seafoam can help your engine run better and last longer. Simply pour a can in your gas tank. Hunters and anglers rely on Seafoam to keep their engines running the way it should the entire season. Pick up a can of Seafoam today at your local auto parts store or visit seafoamworks.com to learn more.
There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today.
Hey everyone. Hopefully you're all doing well. You might be getting a little stir crazy at the moment, but hey, we'll all get through this, and hopefully some of these podcasts will help. If you missed the last couple episodes, we did a 2-part series on spring bear hunting. So some spring bear hunt seasons are coming up, and I got a ton of requests on bear hunting information. So we did that 2-part and got a ton of great response. This week we're doing our Q&A, and we've got a lot of topics. A lot of questions came in. I think we'll touch a little bit on some of the bear questions that came in. We'll also talk a little bit about gear. We'll go into a little bit of fitness stuff, some general questions, and then finish it up with a little bit of life advice. So yeah, let's get started. And also, I really want to thank everybody before we get too deep into this for just the action and the response and the questions and the email and through social media. Ton of great stuff. I really appreciate it, and I wish I could answer all of them, but we'll just get going, and I think some of these had a few similar topics. So I would say this first question I probably saw no less than 50 variations of this exact question, which happens to do with hunting bears in the fall. So we'll start off with a little bit of bear stuff and then jump to some other topics. This one says, "Hey Remy, I really enjoyed your most recent episode of Cutting the Distance. I drew a fall spot and stock bear tag for a unit in Utah, and it'll be my first time hunting bears. I'm trying to absorb as much information that will be useful for me this fall. Any additional information on top of the already great tips you've shared would be greatly appreciated. Thanks." And that's from Garrett. Now, that's a great question. And fall bear hunting can be a really good time to chase them as well. Now, I don't know when this particular season is, but if I was to choose season dates in the fall, I would look toward the month of September. Early September through mid to late September can be the best. Once you get past that, it gets really hard to find specific food sources. Bears disperse, they get into more timber, and I find it hard to regularly find bears. But early fall, or even some states have a season that starts in August, while their coats aren't ideal then, they can be easily pinpointed on food sources. So early fall, if we're talking September, what I really look for is, and it depends on your region, but berry crop production. Whether it be, if you're in the Mountain West, you've got huckleberries. In the Pacific Northwest, you've got more of like raspberries, blueberries. In Alaska, blueberries. So like berries can be extremely good food sources to concentrate on. Now, outside of like Alaska, fall salmon runs and stuff like that. I would say some other food sources in some drier areas to think about. I know like Nevada, California, and also Utah, rose hips are a great food source in the fall to focus on, as well as things like pine nuts, pinyon pines, ponderosa pines even sometimes, but pine nuts depending on the time of year. Now, fall food sources can be a little bit tricky to pinpoint. So if you were to just think, okay, well, what food sources I'm going to find? It really depends on the type of summer. If there was a lot of water, not a lot of water, a lot depends on what's growing where. So in lean water years where berry production's bad, I focus more on watered canyons, choked with maybe more rose hip and stuff like that, as well as in the fall is a great time to focus on water sources. There's a lot of food around more wet areas if it was drier, and on hot days, you can even focus on maybe like elk wallows and other water sources. So you'll find them interacting with the food sources, but you'll also find bears hitting up those water sources, especially when it's hot. I mentioned in one of the earlier podcasts about what I learned, seeing a trail camera on an elk wallow and how many bears were actually using that. And it was just shocking and surprising. But I do find consistently a lot of bears in those wetter areas on dry years, and then I focus on in more wet years where the berries are good, try to find really good berry patches close to thicker cover, and possibly in areas where they might move up to dens. So looking, later in the season, maybe moving toward some of those areas that you focus on early in the spring. And so you can kind of play it that way. But the fall can be a great time to hunt bears. It's just the same scenario, focusing on the food sources. That time of year, it's mostly berries. You've also got in the Southwest, acorn production can be good some years, and just really figuring out, okay, what food sources are popping off right now, and how do I focus on those and find the places where it's good bear habitat, but it's got a high density of food. If you do that, you'll be successful. Another thing, before I get off the topic, one other thing to think about in the fall is bears will tend to eat more like carry-on dead animals that they find. Hunter harvests, like if a hunter is shot and left a gut pile of an elk, even checking back in those areas and seeing if something's hit a carcass that you find or whatever is also another way to find bears in the fall. All right, let's move on to the next bear question. This question comes from Mark in Nevada. He says, listening to your latest bear hunting podcasts, questions for you for next week's Q&A. Other than cooking bear meat to 165 degrees, do you treat it any different from deer, elk, or other game meat? I know some people send the whole thing through the grinder. That's a great question. Bear meat can be awesome if prepared right. I think some people might find it more off-putting because they say it's greasy, and that's probably lends to why it gets put into sausage and other things. Another factor he mentioned, now if you aren't familiar, the 165 degrees, it's because bears can contain trichinosis, and so if you don't cook the meat to the right temperature, you yourself can contract trichinosis. So it's super important. Now, yes, I treat it different than deer, or cook it different than deer and other game meat, because you do have to hit that high temperature. When I'm cooking elk steak or deer steak, I'm normally pulling it off the grill at 125. I really like it medium rare. I don't want to overcook it. So when I do cook bear meat, I always tend to use recipes that I know I'm going to hit that high temperature, but also where it still tastes good. So for me, a lot of bear cooking is more, I don't do a lot of steaks. I do a lot more slow cooking. I'll do like some of my favorite bear recipes are slow cooked, like pulled pork style. I'll throw it in a crock pot. I'll first season it with some seasoning. I'll brown it in a pan. Then I'll throw it in a crock pot with a little bit of oil in the bottom and maybe an onion or something. Let it go on high for about 5 hours to where it's easily pulled apart with a fork. Then I'll shred it, mix it with some barbecue sauce, make like pulled pork sandwiches. Also, slow cooked roasts is a great way. Slow cooking, tends to dry other game meat out, but bear meat, it does have that extra fat, and that extra fat isn't bad. It doesn't taste bad, especially once it's cooked down. So you slow cook it in a recipe like that, and you've got a really tender, great meat that has hit that temperature, clearly killed trichinosis, and safe to eat and taste good. And I think that that's what I like to do. I also will use like the smoker, do almost like a beef brisket style recipe on the barbecue. Anything where it's kind of low and slow, but then gets that temperature over that 165 is a great way to go. Some other options include, like, I do a lot of like tacos or enchiladas, stuff like that, where I can slow roast the meat in some enchilada sauce for 5-6 hours, get it super hot to where it shreds, and then go with it from there. All right, we've got one more bear question, then we'll move on to some other topics. So this one comes from Lauren in Texas. She says, huge fan of your podcast. My boyfriend and I are going on a spring bear hunt in Idaho this year and love listening to the last episode together. So I've got a question, and it might seem extremely elementary. How do you guys find your way through the woods to a hunting spot and back to camp? I didn't grow up hunting or in the woods, but when I'm out in the forest or in the woods, everyone always seems to have a grasp on where we are but me. Any tips on directional intelligence or how to navigate through the field when hunting, especially spot and stalk? Yeah, I think that that's actually a great question, Lauren, because it's not super elementary. Being really good at navigating in the mountains, in the woods, it takes, there's a portion of it that kind of becomes innate, but it can also be trained. So here's some of the things that I always tell people that are just getting into it. The first one is, it depends on whether you're leading or following, how much attention you're paying to where you're going. And so if you're by yourself or leading, you're looking around, you're analyzing where you're going. When you're following someone else, and this is just starting out, if you're following someone else, you're mostly just going where they go. So what you have to do, whether you're following someone else or leading, I think a lot of people, like when I'm guiding, I'll have people following me, and when we get somewhere, they have no clue where they're at. Well, it's because they aren't actively looking around and actively bringing into remembrance where they're going and what's going on. So these tips can be translated. It's like if I'm just walking in the woods by myself, it's something important to do, and this is something important for everyone to think about doing when you're in the woods with someone else or by yourself, using some of these tips if you're a little bit directionally challenged. So the first thing is kind of knowing your cardinal directions is huge. Now, where the sun is and how you got into an area, and understanding the area that you're at by looking at a map ahead of time really helps you kind of picture the layout of the area. So always before I go in, I'll pull out my maps and I'll look over the area and say, okay, here's where I'm at, here's where I'm going. Now kind of think about the road that you drove in on. Now, which direction on the map is that going? North, south, east, west. Now, when you're sitting at the trailhead or wherever you are, okay, which way is the road that I drove in on? Which way does the canyon go? Does the canyon go north, south? Does it go east, west? Then also understanding directions based on the sun. So the sun always rises in the east and sets in the west. Okay, now in the middle of the day, it might be hard to tell which direction, but as you're going into an area, okay, did the sun rise on this side of where I am? Did the sun rise on that side of where I am? Direction, finding where you're at can be easy in really open areas because you'll use landmarks. It's a very visual process. Looking around, using peaks and identifying peaks and other things around you. The easiest way to get lost is in flat places that are thick and hard to kind of pick out a definitive landmark. So what I have always been told, and this I know works really well, is as you're walking around, you want to walk with your head up, you want to be looking around, and as you see things, you kind of create a story of what you see. Now, what this is doing is it's just using memorization techniques of creating what I would call a memory palace, or making something that you might not notice into something that's familiar by telling yourself a story. I'd heard that this was a way that Native Americans had traveled over long distances and learned navigation techniques by just like creating stories about things that they saw. And then they could relay some of these stories to help other people find their direction. Now, how true that is or what, I don't know, but it does make a lot of sense. If you're walking around, you see a certain tree or a creek, create a story and a narrative that's easy to remember, that helps you kind of associate where you are with what's going around. The other thing that this does is it gets your head up, gets you paying attention to what's around you and really critically thinking about it. So when you then come back and see these landmarks or features in the hills or creeks, depressions, trees, strange rocks, just different stuff, it gives you a good idea of knowing that, okay, I'm on my way back, I'm here, there, whatever. Over time, your brain kind of starts to remember where you are, and you start to learn based on directional feeling. It's funny because for a very, very, very long time, I never relied on GPSs, and I never had problems finding my way back, but it was just doing it time and time again. And it would just, even places I'd never been, could find my way back every time, even walking back almost on the same routes over long distances, just based on the way that it feels and the direction that I'm going. Your body does over time learn how to navigate. But when you're starting out, it's just a matter of paying attention, getting your mind critically thinking, always looking up, and then never forget to look behind you where you came from. Because as you're walking out of somewhere, you're always looking at a different view. So I'm constantly scanning around and never forgetting to look behind and understanding what it looks like on my way back. And then use your mapping and GPS software, but don't rely on it. Use it as a instrument to help you, but also, get good at directional sense and just navigation without those electronics, but have it so you can kind of understand as you're going. Looking at a map while you're walking is a great way to understand your direction and where you're going as well. I might have spent a little too much time on that, but I really think that that's a skill that a lot of people struggle with and probably don't admit to, or a lot of people admit to it, but they just don't know how to fix it. They just think, people that are good at finding their way are just naturally good at it. And it comes with practice and time, but those are some tricks that you can use to get way better at it. So I really like that question.
O'Reilly Auto Parts are in the business of keeping your car on the road. O'Reilly Auto Parts offer friendly, helpful service and the parts knowledge you need for all your maintenance and repairs. If you're confused about what part you need, like what wipers are going to be the best, what replacement headlights are going to be the best, go into O'Reilly and talk to the people that work there, because they're great and they're super friendly, and they'll get you squared away where you walk out knowing you got the right thing. They've got thousands of parts and accessories in stock, either in-store or online, so you never have to worry if you're in a jam. Do you need your windshield wipers replaced? You need a brake light fixed? You need some quick service? They'll help you find the right part or point you to the nearest local repair shop for help. The professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts are your one-stop shop for all things auto do-it-yourself, and you can find what you need in-store or online. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today or visit us at O'ReillyAuto.com/MeatEater. That's O'ReillyAuto.com/MeatEater.
We've all seen plenty of gadgets and fads come and go, but here's one product that stood the test of time: Seafoam Motor Treatment. Lots of hunters and anglers know that Seafoam helps engines run better and last longer. It's really simple. When you pour it in your gas tank, Seafoam cleans harmful fuel deposits that cause engine problems. I'm talking common stuff like hard starts, rough engine performance, or lost fuel economy. Seafoam is an easy way to prevent or overcome these problems. Just pour a can in your gas tank and let it clean your fuel system. You probably know someone who has used a can of Seafoam to get their truck or boat going again. People everywhere rely on Seafoam to keep their trucks, boats, and small engines running the way that they should the entire season. Help your engine run better and last longer. Pick up a can of Seafoam today at your local auto parts store or visit seafoamworks.com to learn more.
There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store, or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today.
All right, let's go into some gear right now. I get a lot of gear questions. Actually, I'll read this question, then I'll jump on one that I just saw a lot. This one says, my name is Dan, and I'm thinking about getting started on elk hunts that will be camping, backpacking into the mountains for a week or so at a time. What size backpack do you recommend when starting out to have enough room for supplies and to carry out meat when an elk is harvested? Yeah, that's a great question. So if we're talking backpacks, it's got to first have a frame of some kind, either internal or external. I think that should just be obvious, but it may not be to some people. So you want a good sturdy pack with an internal or external frame. You want straps that are adjustable and then a waist belt that fits. Having the right pack is a pack that you can adjust to your specific torso length. Now, outside of that, I really like packs. For week-long trips, I'm trying to look for something in the 6,000 cubic range. The pack that I use is actually a Stone Glacier pack. They have all kinds of different frames and bags and whatever. The larger, the 6,000, any bags in that 6,000 range seem to work really good. But I've even gone with bags in the 3,000 to 4,000 cubic range. It's just that the Stone Glacier pack that I use happens to have like a pull-away shelf. So you can actually pull the bag away from the frame itself and slide, say, a quarter or whatever in between the pack frame and the bag. Having some kind of expandability is huge as far as taking in your gear and then packing stuff out. Now, you got to realize if you're going in for a week, most of your weight and bulk going in is going to be food that you're taking in. So if I run out of room, if I have a smaller pack bag, having something that pulls away from the frame where I can stuff it in the load shelf, I'll kind of use that to bring my food in. And then on the way out, you don't have as much food and that kind of stuff. That's pretty much, you've eaten it along the way, so you can use that space then to pack stuff out. Now, you might be making multiple trips, but having a little bit extra room is always nice. So once you go in, you can have your camp, all your setup, and then on the way out, you can at least take some meat, and then you might have to go make another trip once you drop off either your camp stuff or some of the meat, and then make multiple trips packing out. But anything in that 5,500 to 6,500 cubic range is what I would consider a large pack and a pretty good size for any kind of hunt week long where you're going to be packing meat as well. All right, so let's get into fitness type prep questions. And I think these are great because so much Western hunting can be physical, and a lot of your success is just going to depend on whether you can go that next ridge, whether you can get up to that spot in time. So I think that this is just a huge part of it that maybe doesn't get talked about enough. So this question reads, thanks for producing some of the best hunting content out there. I find your content informative, inspiring, hard-earned, and accurate. This person works full-time and their hunting time's a little bit short, but they've identified some productive areas, using some of the scouting techniques, found some places with some good elevation gains that they're hoping will have less pressure. So to take advantage of those, I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but to take advantage of those off-road hunting opportunities in more steep country, they're trying to get into better shape. And so they've got 2 routes in town that they can walk with a pack. And he does it about 3 times per week. He says the first route is 4 miles, nearly 2 miles uphill, and then the same distance downhill, with a very short distance on the flats. The elevation gain is moderate. His second route is 3/4 of a mile total round trip, and is leg burning steep. He repeats that 6 times, and then he's got his 4 miles. In my experience, which one of those routes is more effective training? Steady elevation gain over distance, or short but steep gain repeated multiple times? That is a great question. So that question is from Scott from Idaho. And that's a great question, Scott. So in the past, I think that one of the ways that I kind of trained to get in really good shape to keep going, especially before guiding season or whatever, is I would pick a really steep hill and work that hill where you get that leg burn. I'm not an exercise physiologist by any means, but what I have found is that once you get that lactic acid building up, working through that really builds up your endurance that you kind of need for the hunt. So I found just starting out, there was a steep hill, and the first time I'd have a pack on, I'd walk up it, and it was probably longer than some of your hills, it sounds like, but it was one of those hills where I'd start walking and it was like, oh my gosh, my legs are burning. I need to stop. And then I would stop and see how long it took me to recover and then keep walking. So what I found was I started one day, just had this idea that I'm going to walk up this steep hill, and no matter what, I'm not going to stop. So I would walk up it, and it's like my legs would be burning and almost want to stop. And I would just kind of like start walking different. Any way to keep moving and not stop. Just keep that leg burning. And I would actually like go walking normal. And then it's like, oh my gosh, I can't walk. And then I would turn around and start walking up the hill backwards or like sidestepping. Anything I had to do to keep going, just not stop. It's like, as long as I kept some kind of forward motion and just press on to the top. The next day, do the same thing. And over time, I then became where it was just like walking up that hill was just like walking on flat ground. What it did was it built and strengthened the muscles in my legs, but also taught my legs like it just gave me a little bit more endurance base. And that steep hill did it in a lot shorter time. It also helped build up my lungs and train the way that I controlled my breathing. So as I was going huffing and puffing, I would intentionally try to slow my heart rate and slow my breathing while my legs were burning. By doing that over time, I just got better at going uphill, doing it fast, doing it efficiently, and really using my oxygen better. So that's just one way that I've trained. And I think that doing that made me so much better at hiking, where, to be honest, I almost prefer to go uphill in many instances than downhill or side hill or even on flat ground, because I just have done that training for that steep uphill, which seems to be the stuff that I encounter elk and deer hunting. Now, I think that because you have both options, I would do the steep uphill twice and then the long gradual once a week if I was doing it 3 times a week. That way it gives you a little bit of everything. And if you can find a longer, steeper hill, find that. Something where you can go up, and it's like you feel like you have to stop, and then kind of measure your progression based on how far you can get without stopping. And at some point, it's going to become easy to go up that one hill. And at some point, you're going to now be able to work on your breathing, work on your lung capacity. And that's just going to translate into being able to do that all day long, I think. So that I would give a try if you can. Now, if you're the type of person that lives somewhere where you don't have access to hills, I mean, even, I don't know, like treadmills on inclines and kind of trying to do that maybe a little bit faster pace in a jog, or I've never really used one, but those like Stairmasters, I know some people have used that in the same like stair climb or climbing up sets of stairs through stairwells and other stuff. That can really help. So just building that endurance for being able to push your body when it wants to stop, just saying, okay, keep going, keep moving, and just, it doesn't have to be fast, but just don't stop. I feel like that's the best way to train and keep yourself going. I asked last week for a little bit of life advice if anybody had some or wanted some stuff that just, anything. And this one I think is really timely for what's going on right now with the whole COVID thing. It says, hey, Remy, big fan of the podcast. Question for you. I've been hunting a small farm for wild turkeys for the past 2 seasons. I obtained permission by cold emailing the owner, and it's been a good, successful spot so far. I've had some text exchanges with the owner when the season was going, mainly saying when I'd be there, when I was gone, and I haven't corresponded with him since fall season. My question is this. With this coronavirus madness going on, is it weird or insensitive to text him after a few months to ask about the spring season? I'm trying not to be a dick, but I also want to turkey hunt. Thanks, Prentice. That is a great question because it really takes into consideration a lot of things. And yeah, we're in a situation where we've never been. Here's my thought on it. I think that it's never a bad thing, especially in this time, to reach out to people. You may not have actually ever even met this person just through emails or texts or whatever. But, keeping those relationships up is always a good thing. And with what's going on right now, if you have, you've had permission in the past, if this wasn't going on, you would probably feel free to reach out. But I say reach out with a genuine pretense of how are they doing? Say, hey, I was thinking about you. Just want to check in on you and your family. Hope all is going well. Say, with whatever's going on, all this craziness, I'm looking forward to getting out and was wondering if you wouldn't mind if I hunted this spring season there. Say, with whatever's going on, I understand either way. Also, if there's anything you need or I can help you with, please let me know. Because it's a great time to reach out. I think it's probably the best time and a better opportunity to reach out. I think if you just said, hey, can I go hunting? Am I in? What's the deal kind of thing? Yeah, that might be taken wrong. It's like everybody's got their own stuff to think about. But, reach out to them, see how they're doing, mention the fact that obviously it'd be great to get out and go from there and see if they need anything. There's probably a lot of things that they could do or whatever that might help them out as well. So you never know. You might build a better relationship. And if they say no, hey, that's cool. And, maybe reach out a different time. Maybe now's not the time. But I think that there's never a bad time to check in on someone, to be cordial. And I think that they'll probably respond well to that. I thank everybody for tuning in. Gosh, it was a lot of great questions. I'll try to answer some more of them, the ones that have come in through social media and stuff. I'll send you guys messages on some of that. But I tried to pick some of the questions that really hit topics that I saw asked a lot. As always, feel free, if this brings up more questions or you have more questions or your question wasn't answered, feel free to shoot me a message, because I like to try to read a few of them in the closings after every week, just maybe touch on a couple that I didn't get to. And also, I love the interaction, because it gives me an opportunity to understand what people want to hear about, the kind of topics that people want to hear, and gives me an idea of what to talk about that I think will benefit the most people. Next week, I'm not actually 100% set on what I want to talk about next week, but I'm thinking there was a lot of questions about thermals and wind, and I did actually touch on that a little bit in a previous Q&A, but it would be cool to just go a little bit deeper into that. Maybe we'll talk about that. I've got some other topics that I like to talk about, persistence being one of them, some more scouting from home ideas, especially with a little bit of downtime and applications going on, some of that kind of stuff. So if there's some other things you guys want to hear about, shoot out. I've also got a lot of stuff planned for the future, as far as a lot of the questions that come in are about elk and mule deer. So that's why I try to talk about those a lot. And we will, before this fall, kind of hit on some serious elk tactics, because I love talking about that. And it's a lot of fun. And I think that that's probably one of the things that everybody's dreaming about or thinking about right now, fall seasons. I know a lot of you are going to be turkey hunting. If you use some of these tips, or you've got hunts planned, reach out. Let's make this a two-way communication. You can always get me on @RemyWarren at Instagram. If you're looking for some stuff to do, you're a little bit bored, maybe you're home quarantined, you've listened to all these podcasts 4 times. I think I got a few comments of people that have already listened to about every Cutting the Distance episode for the 4th time now. We've got the Solo Hunter TV show that I do. We put all our episodes that we have so far on both YouTube and Amazon Prime. So if you haven't seen those, you can go check those out. Or if you have seen them, you can go rewatch them. There's some cool hunts on there. Maybe get you stoked up for something that you're going to do this fall. I know I've personally been kind of checking out different videos. I've watched a few spring bear hunting videos. I've seen some cool stuff. Man, I'm missing the roar in New Zealand. And so are many of the Kiwis, because the public lands have pretty much been shut down for hunting right now until all this blows over. So although I missed the roar this year, I think everybody did. So it's kind of a combined ouch. Actually, right now I was supposed to be in Argentina filming a Saco Great Hunt Series video for red deer down in Argentina, and I'm just super excited about it. And obviously, plans change. But what I'm really looking forward to now is I'm going to do some additional turkey hunting this year. It's one of those things that I kind of always put on the back burner, but it is a lot of fun. A lot of you out there, talking about it, pumped on it. So I'm kind of getting pumped up for that. Been watching some turkey stuff and a lot of spring bear stuff, kind of getting excited about that, because normally I'm gone this time of year in the South Pacific somewhere, hunting tahr or red deer, fallow deer, or something like that. So to get back and do a little bit earlier season spring bear hunting, all those tips that I talked about, that's the way I'm going to be hunting, and I'm pretty excited about that. So feel free to reach out, communicate with me, and yeah, we'll get through this. I'm excited for some of the future episodes, and I just really appreciate everybody's comments, ratings. We definitely, if you're listening and you aren't a subscriber, feel free, jump on, hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you listen to the podcasts, and then share them with some friends. If you got some guys or gals out there might enjoy this while they're at home, please share it up. All right, until next week, catch you guys later.
Outdoor adventure won't wait for engine problems. Things like hard starts, rough performance, and lost fuel economy are often caused by fuel gum and varnish buildup. Seafoam can help your engine run better and last longer. Simply pour a can in your gas tank. Hunters and anglers rely on Seafoam to keep their engines running the way it should the entire season. Pick up a can of Seafoam today at your local auto parts store or visit seafoamworks.com to learn more.
You ever get that feeling the walls closing in, the concrete jungle suffocating you? You crave some wide open spaces, the chance to connect with nature, maybe in a spot all your own. Well, head over to land.com. They've got ranches, forests, mountains, streams, you name it. Search by acreage. You can search by location. You can search by the kind of hunting and fishing you're dreaming of. Land.com. It is where the adventure begins.